Okay, so I know in the last video I mentioned something about how people need to use the ESRB. Yes, I do feel that the ESRB is a rather important thing and should be followed to an extent. Allow me to clarify that statement that I made in the last video. I grew up playing Doom and Mortal Kombat and things of such from a very early age. I think I might have been like 10 when I first played Doom, 10 or 11, and it was for the 32X. I was playing Mortal Kombat at the arcade when it first came out, like the first one. So, I'm no stranger to blood, gore, anything like that. What I feel that the ESRB represents, and I think it does a good job of what it entails and what it represents. This is where parenting comes into play. I feel that the ESRB is a benchmark for what a game entails. Like, God of War, obviously it's a mature title. There's blood, there's gore, you've got giant monsters being impaled, people being dismembered, you name it, it's got it. Duke Nukem, doesn't matter what version. It's got blood, it has violence, it has nudity, it has prostitutional references, stripping, it has crude language and humor. I mean, you name it, it's got it. And it's not rated adult only, believe it or not. I was actually surprised by that one. I guess maybe because there's no explicit, like, sexual intercourse type stuff. There's just boobs. But anyway, the ESRB was established in 1994 as a result of games like Doom, Mortal Kombat, Night Trap, Lethal Enforcers. Games were getting more lifelike, and games were starting. They felt like games were starting to affect people because you had Mortal Kombat, which had dismemberment, decapitations, people being exploded because they got frozen and then shattered, for crying out loud. Hearts being ripped out, heads being ripped off with spinal columns attached. Then you had Doom, which had blood, lifelike violence. You were in the seat, you were in the eyes of Doom Guy. Those are the two big examples that I personally know of growing up. And it's a very good benchmark. I feel that the ESRB does what it does well. This is, like I said, this is where parenting comes into play. A parent should be able to judge what their child can and cannot handle, or what they feel that their child should and should not be exposed to. Me, I grew up, before the ESRB ever came out, I was playing stuff like Doom and Mortal Kombat, and I turned out quite okay, and I thank my parents with every fiber of my being that I turned out okay. They did a fantastic job raising me. They did a fantastic job raising my brother. We both turned out okay. I have no intentions, I may play, put in like hundreds of hours on first-person shooters, but I would never, just because I can, obviously, I would never go out with a gun and shoot anybody. I would never go with a chainsaw and try and, dismember somebody because, oh, hey, it's funny, The ESRB lists what's in a video game, and it allows parents to be able to find what is in these games that may be objectionable to different players, to different families, to different beliefs. And this allows them to determine what their child should and should not be allowed to be exposed to. I feel that the ESRB should be used, but it shouldn't be a set, like a concrete thing. I feel that if there's a 14-year-old, a 14-year-old child that is kind of like me, real laid back, can differentiate between fantasy and reality. That's the big one. You have to be able to differentiate between fantasy and reality. if I were 13 or 14 right now, and my mom went and bought me, like, God of War, or Call of Duty, or Gears of War, any of these big titles that are rated, like, M for mature, I would be okay. I would just sit, I'd play it, Mortal Kombat is another good one. It's still violent after, like, 20 years of being around. God, Mortal Kombat's, like, almost, is 20 years old, I believe. That's a scary thought. Anyway, I would, somebody like me, I'd be okay. I wouldn't, it had no influence on me as a person. If anything, it made me not want to commit these acts. Parents need to be parents. That's what the ESRB basically boils down to. Teenagers can go in with their parents and purchase M-rated games in most, if not all, states here, in the United States. Which I see no problem with that. As long as the child's being monitored and the child is being, as long as the child knows the difference between this is a video game and that you shouldn't do these things, crossing them over here into real life, that's the biggest importance out of anything that the ESRB can teach you. I don't think like I said, it shouldn't be concrete. I don't feel that if you're 17, then you can play mature-rated games. I feel some leniency in here. I feel it's based on the individual. Somebody that's 11, 12... Here's another thing. Games have gotten more realistic since the time of Mortal Kombat and Doom and Night Trap. Doom, if you look at it now, in comparison to back then, now, I'll be honest, visually, Doom does not hold up anymore. It's so out of date and pixelated. You can tell it's not realistic. Of course, back in 1993, 94, and 95... that game was pretty damn realistic when it came out. Of course, then they started releasing, like, Duke Nukem and Quake, and, what else came out around that time? I think Unreal, Half-Life, those things started to come out, and it started to make Doom, fuzzy in comparison. But that's one thing you can look at. Mortal Kombat actually had real actors come in and perform these moves for the characters that they were playing. If you ever go back through the original Mortal Kombat and you beat the game, you'll actually see the stand-in actors that they used. They used, I think it was the motion capture, mocap stuff. Anyway, games have gotten much more realistic looking. If you compare Call of Duty to Doom in visuals, and I realize I use Call of Duty because everybody recognizes it as a title. Not everyone's going to recognize, like Duke Nukem Forever as a title. So, like I said, I have a distaste for Call of Duty, but I use it as examples because it's a popular title. Everybody can reference it really quickly. Anyway, if you look, compare them, Call of Duty looks way more realistic than the original classic Doom ever did. As technology advances, things are going to look more realistic. They're going to be more intense. You're going to have more realistic sound effects. You're going to have more realistic blood splatter. You're going to have more realistic dismembered bodies. You're going to have more more realistic. Yeah, you're going to have more realistic blood splatter and dismemberment and, action. The guns look more realistic. The guns sound more realistic. The places look more realistic. It's a matter of technology has advanced to the point that it really is starting to make a difference. Yeah, if that makes any sort of sense whatsoever, what I'm trying to say. Doom... completely, at this point, Doom is pretty safe for like an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old. I'm never going to deny that. I played it myself. I turned out okay. But this is given if the child can be able to take this as a game, and not, you know, I can kill these things in this game, I can kill people in real life kind of thing. You've got to be able to make that difference. You've got to be able to tell the difference, both, you know, visually and mentally. You know, obviously visually because you're holding a damn controller, or a keyboard and mouse, or a joystick, or a laser gun, or whatever it is that you're using at that time. It's, like I said, it's complicated. ESRB should not be set in stone. It should be a benchmark for parents, for gamers, to be able to say, hey, I think this is a title I might enjoy. Or, example, I don't like alcohol references in my video games. Okay, the ESRB has, a list, you know, alcohol reference or use on the back of the box. You know, here's a good one. Borderlands 2, right? First thing I grabbed. Mature, 17. You should be able to see it. It says, blood and gore, intense violence, language, sexual themes, use of alcohol. Okay? I would say I was somebody that was completely anti-alcohol. I could pick this up and go, hey, this says use of alcohol. I may or may not like this game. And thus, I have the option of passing over on getting this title. Let's take another look at, you know what? Diablo 3. Ha! Has nothing on the box. That's right. It's all back up there. Never mind. That's not a good example. Star Wars The Old Republic. Blood and gore, mild language, sexual themes, violence. Okay. Let's say I'm some sort of prude, and sexual themes are completely, oh my god, they're evil. I have the option of passing this title over. ESRB basically allows people to see what could be objectionable material before they purchase it. Either for them, or for their child, for a friend, you know, for their parents. I've heard, you know, some parents play video games, and I've heard children buying games for the parents, you know. But that's where I feel the ESRB is. And that's how I feel that it should be used. It should be a sort of, parents need to be parents and actually look things over before buying it for their kid, because, oh, hey, everybody else is playing it, and if I don't have it, they're going to make fun of me. Which is a good reason, peer pressure, which people shouldn't give into. That's why we have people that are addicted to drugs by the time they're like 16. Anyway, I'll use one last example. Let's see. Oh, yes. How about this? Duke Nukem Forever. And it's signed, by the way, by John St. John. Blood and gore, intense violence, mature humor, nudity, strong language, strong sexual content, use of drugs and alcohol. It's all right there. If you don't want to see boobs in a game, you don't have to see boobs in a game. If you don't want a violent video game, you can pass it up. You can play something like Katamari Damacy, which is an awesome franchise, by the way. That's my thoughts on the ESRB. I think it's a good thing. I'm kind of glad we have it in a way. I just feel that people need to use it, utilize it, take it and judge a game for themselves if they're buying it for their kid. Obviously, if you're an adult, you can make your own decisions. Sometimes people don't make the right decisions, but you can make your own decisions.